Hello, First Teams, and welcome to the first Fundraising Toolkit Section 4 webinar, which is focused on the topic of sponsor presentations. My name is Renee Becker, and I am the first Fundraising Toolkit Coordinator. And today we have Erin, a student leader of FTC Team 4140, helping us learn a little bit more about their sponsor presentation.
Thanks,
Erin.
Renee.
Thanks for coming on the call. All right.
Thanks, Renee.
So the Fundraising Toolkit started with a grant from the Argosy Foundation. The focus behind the toolkit is to provide teams with materials to fundraise, help them develop local relationships, highlight successful fundraisers that other teams are doing in their communities, and to help increase the sustainability of all FIRST teams. The goal of Section 4 specifically is to help students develop presentation skills, highlight example presentation materials for them, and to talk about team expectations and what they've done to ensure appropriate sponsor recruitment and maintenance by students. So the overview of this webinar will be going through some of Fish in the Boat's examples and to talk to them about how they do and prepare for their sponsor presentations. So, Erin, can you talk a little bit about Fish in the Boat? Give us an introduction to the team.
All right, so Fish in the Boat started in First Leg of League in 2005, so we're going into our 9th season this year. We spent 6 years in First Leg League and 4 years in FTC. We had a double season of First Leg League and First Tech Challenge. After qualifying for the World Championships for 3 years in a row in FTC, this past year we were the FTC World Champions on the Winning Alliance. We are a self-funded team, so we raise all of our own money. We're not affiliated too much with the school. We don't get any funding from them. And this year we had 13 sponsors.
So when your team's starting out, how do you determine your team budget for the year?
So since we are a fourth-year team, usually what we do now is we use last year's numbers. So we take what we spend on gas and hotels and everything from last year and average estimate that for this year. If you don't have last year's numbers, or if you are a rookie team, the first website has some bare bones, bare minimum numbers on the website to run a team. Otherwise, what we did our first year was we talked to other first teams about what they thought we would spend. A great example of this is our first year. After we qualified for champs, we didn't actually have any money, so we talked to an FRC team about what they thought we would need to raise. And they averaged, like, with gas mileage, the distance to St. Louis, hotel costs, registration, what we needed for spare parts, just going through what they'd spent in the past and what our kit of parts, what our spare parts cost. They estimated we would need about $6,000 to get to champs that year. So it's a lot of averaging and estimating, but if you keep documentation of that, it adds up to getting a full, like a very accurate reflection of it in future years.
Great, and I think that that's really helpful. And proper documentation of a team's budget is also important, just in terms of making sure that you're not spending more than you're taking in as well. So how did you identify local companies to reach out to about becoming a partner with the team?
So really the first thing to do in every first program is to look at the students on your team and talk to their parents. On the team, we have a lot of family contacts who work in STEM fields. So we went and we found sponsors from Lockheed Martin, from United Technologies, from BTD, who all have parents or relatives working there, and we had a little in that respect. Next step would be is to go into your local industrial park. Lakeville has one that's about 5 minutes away from where we meet, so it's pretty close. These companies are they're smaller companies, but they're looking for the publicity and they're looking to give back and support their community, as well as help out some of their potential future employees. We have one company that is sponsoring us because we're from Lakeville and they really want to support the STEM growth in Lakeville. And then there are other area companies. We're close to the metro, close to the Twin Cities in Minnesota, so we go there and just talk to companies in that general area. But with our sponsors, not all of them are financial sponsors. We also get products and tools from them. One of our sponsors is a plastic sponsor, as well as mentors. We have mentors from Lockheed Martin. So sponsorship doesn't just have to be financial. That's where the bulk of it is. But it can be a definite big range of things. When you're contacting these sponsors, the first step is to call them and just set up a meeting. This is not for to go through your entire pitch over the phone, to get fundraising over the phone. It's just to get yourself in the door so you can go and talk to them later and tell them more about first in person. Um, One of the big things in doing this, in contacting all these companies, is keeping everything organized. And that's where a big sponsor database comes in. The first year we found sponsors, we put everything in a binder. It worked for a temporary solution, just to keep everything organized in one place. Now we've shifted it to like an Excel spreadsheet type thing. We like that a lot better. In it, we include who we talk to, so the company, the point of contact, and their contact info. When we talk to them, what we said, so a general idea of this is first, can we come talk to you? Did we set up a demo with them, or were they not interested? When is the demo? Where is the demo? And who's going to the demo? As well as later, after we go and present to them, we update what was the result. So did they sponsor us? Do we need to follow up? Are they not going to sponsor us? But we just had a cool demo there.
And for teams who are listening in, you can take a look at the Fundraising Toolkit under Section 2. There's an example sponsored database that was created to try and help teams with this process. So teams can take that and change it into whatever they'd like, but I wanted to mention that. So once you've identified these local companies that you're contacting, how do you really prepare your students to go out and talk to these companies about the team?
So the first step in doing that is to have the team members put together a pitch. Our example one is on a later slide. It's what we use to put it together. But in going out, after you set up a demonstration or a presentation, you want to practice it first, so you're not going in there and winging it. Speaking from experience there. Definitely a good way to do this is to give presentations to mentors, family members, coaches, people who can give you feedback before you go and ask for money. It's a great idea to practice with anything you're planning on taking to the event. If you're bringing a robot, make sure you have that all set up and get it set up smoothly. Know who's setting up, who's saying what, who's carrying field elements if you're bringing those, who are we giving the responsibility of carrying our engineering notebook and our packet of information we're giving them, as well as just going through making sure you're prepared, for who's saying what during the presentation, so you're not stumbling over each other or interrupting each other.
I think it's an important point to mention that you guys do practice presentations with the mentors and the family members, and so that one is probably a great way to get your families involved, and two, it allows you to kind of get out the kinks of your presentation and really figure everything out before you're actually going to official sponsor. So do you find that that's really helpful for the team?
It is. It's really helpful, especially with some of our team members are a little quieter and need a little more practice. So it's a great way for them to get more comfortable with what they're talking about, just so everyone gets more comfortable with what they're saying.
All right, and so an example of the presentation, do you want to kind of walk through the steps that you go through and then how you prepare the students and what they're walking through when they present?
Yep. This is just an example of what we do. Different teams do it different ways. We found this works really well for us. But we do have to keep the element of flexibility in there. You'll have a different set amount of time to talk about your team. It could either be like 10 minutes or an hour. You have to be able to adapt to a time slot. So basically what we start with is a welcome, just introducing our team, what FIRST is, what FTC or whatever program you're in is, giving them a little background on what you're talking about. Then you move into your history. So after saying where fish in the boat and introducing the team members giving the presentation, you go into like when your team started, how many team members you have, what you've done together as a team, if you've won any awards, things like that. Accomplishments, if you're a returning veteran team, it's a great way, it's a good place to say how you've done at previous tournaments, what awards you've been won or nominated for, anything you're really proud of as a team. If you're a rookie team, this is a good place to have like to lay out your goals for this season. Like we're going to go, our goal is to win a certain award, or our goal is to be this successful or something. It's a good place to lay that out. Next one is outreach, or the reason why this next bullet point is outreach, that's kind of the big part of our team is our outreach. If your team focuses a lot on the robot, it's a good place to bring up the robot. This point is more like what you're most proud of on your team. But since ours is outreach, it's like what we've done in the past or what our plans are to make FIRST more well known. For us, it's also a good time to reference sponsors will be displayed at outreach events and tournaments. If you put sponsors on your robot and you're talking about the robot, it's a good place to say that as well. The difference part of it is what makes you different from other teams and why should they sponsor you? How do you stand out? And everyone stands out in their own way. If it's having bright red shirts or really competitive robot, everyone's got something unique about their team. Next one is experiences. What have you learned from being a part of FIRST? We include time management, public speaking, research, mechanical skills, marketing, and software skills. We also have a team member share a story about their experience on the team, something that's really important that they've learned. Next one is money. Some teams put this a little earlier up in their presentation just so they give sponsors like this is what we're looking for. Have how much you want to raise and how much you've raised already ready to give to them, as well as be prepared to say like what their funding is going towards, whether it's robot parts or transportation to tournaments or tournament registration, just so they know they have a solid concrete place where their funding would be going. The next one, the last point we make is relationships. It's what do we gain? So we gain product, money, or sponsor or mentors, and they get publicity, team news, recognition, kids interested in STEM fields, lots of things like that. You want to say it is a two-way relationship. We're not just taking your money and running. And then we open it up for questions at the end of that.
What do you think the most important area in the list here is in terms of explaining that to the sponsors?
Explaining
the team. So say you only had 2 minutes to talk to a sponsor. You can't go through all of these points. So which ones would you focus on, pulling out?
If you had like 2 minutes, I would give like a one sentence on what FIRST is, just so they have this is a robotics program, along with, let's see. I think the big thing is the experience in STEM or in FIRST, because if they're looking for future employees or they're looking for kids interested in STEM, if they know you're learning all these skills and you're improving on public speaking and time management, that's a big thing that they're looking for. So that one's very, very important.
Excellent. And that's what when I've talked to teams about this, that's certainly one of the most important parts they bring up, is really talking about the story of your experience in the program. So thanks, Karen. Now, when you're going to this presentation, what documentation are you bringing along to these sponsors?
So there's always the option of bringing a robot and programming just to show them like a demo of your robot. I'm not totally sure how well that works with FRC. Robots are a little bit bigger. But documentation paper-wise, we always bring a sponsorship packet, our business plan, our engineering notebook, and then any promotional items we have. What we give to the sponsors is our sponsorship packet and a promotional item. In our sponsorship packet is a little bit like a background of the team letter, as well as a thank you for letting us come in and demo for you. Next one is a team brochure. It's a packet of, I think it's 4 pages of just information about the team. It's really pretty. We made it in Publisher. And it's got some of our major outreach events on the back of it because, again, that's kind of what our team focuses on. It's got our business card with our contact information on it. It's got our budget plan. This one is what sponsors get to keep. It shows where their funding would be going, as well as what we've spent already this season. Just so they know we have a solid concrete place where their funding is going, as I said before. Then we have the official FIRST documentation, which is on the FIRST website. We tend to include FIRST at a glance and how it works, just so some more background from FIRST. And then we have the one-page game summary of the challenge that year, or the challenge of whatever robot we're demoing, which is also on the FIRST website. Our business plan is, it's like a 20-page document that just outlines our goals through the season, as well as what we've done to accomplish them. Some teams I know of give a business plan to their sponsors. We think the sponsorship packet has enough about us and has enough information about us that it works just as well. Then we have our engineering notebook, which focuses on our robot. It's the iterations of our robot through the season, which we have them just look through because we need it to continue our iterations. We have them look through it so they can see how we're implementing the engineering process if they're an engineering firm. And then team promotional items, we have these really cool pins that teams really like and that sponsors really like that we give to people who are listening to our presentation. If it's like 20, 30 people, we won't give out 20, 30 pins, but if it's 3 or 4, then yeah, we'll give them pins. Yeah.
I have a couple of those pins myself. I think they're pretty handy. So, what best practices does your team follow during a sponsor presentation? Could you share a few with us?
I had a lot of fun making this slide because I made them all P words. But a lot of these fall under the way you act and present yourself. The information you're giving on FIRST and on your team is important, but half of what determines if they'll sponsor you is the impression you leave them with. That's kind of where the be polite and be prepared, be practiced falls under, is if you walk in there in sweatpants and you're stumbling over your words, then they're probably not going to sponsor you because you're just not put together and representing your team very well. That's where the professional and presentable come in. Make sure you know the dress code of the building you're going to or the company you're going to. If they okay team t-shirts, that's awesome. The picture on this slide is like us all decked out in our fish in the boat garb. We love wearing this to sponsor demos if we can. But if it's a suit and tie company, we're not going to go there wearing tutus and a team t-shirt because that kind of looks a little ridiculous, especially when everyone else is wearing dress shirts. Usually companies are totally okay with t-shirt and jeans because you're high school students or middle school students or elementary school students, depending. But we have had occasions where we have had to wear like a nice, usually it's green, black, or white dress shirt and then slacks. It just really depends on the company you're going to. Then the next one on there is be proud. Be confident in your ability to talk. Be proud of your team and their accomplishments. If you're not proud, they'll be able to tell. And you want to leave them with a lasting impact of a strong team that's willing to work hard to get to achieve their goals. How about that one? The last one on there is be patient. Some of these companies have no idea what FIRST is, so you just got to be patient. Go through what FIRST is, lay it out for them, answer any questions they have. Be honest with them, be upfront, tell them what you need, let them ask any questions, any clarifying questions, anything. If they need some time to discuss, if they want to get back to you in a couple days, give them a couple days to figure things out. If they haven't contacted you in 2 or 3 days, either give them a call, send them an email, and be like, hey, we came in and demoed for you, wondering if you had made any progress. Just wanted to follow up. Things like that. Those are just the really big ones to keep in mind.
And so let's talk a little bit more about that, the following up process and the thanking them afterwards. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what process you follow?
Okay, so the first thing we do immediately after the demo, regardless of whether or not they're sponsoring you, regardless whether or not anything comes of it, thank them for their time because they're busy professionals taking some time out of their day to listen to a bunch of high school students talk about a robot. Um, so that one's really, really important. It leaves them with a good lasting impression so you can go and maybe talk to them later or next season. If they do sponsor you, send them a thank you letter in the mail. So it can be a typed up letter, but print it out, put it in an envelope, send it through snail mail. We include a pin as well, the ones I talked about earlier. Make this thank you letter a little more personal to them because they did sponsor you. Um, so thank them again for their time as well as for their sponsorship and let them know what it's going towards. Or if you don't have an idea yet, say we're probably going to use this in a couple different areas. Give a couple examples of that. And then along with that one, display their logo on where you said you would. Usually to give back to sponsors, we put their logo on our website, on our t-shirts in our pits, and then some of our major sponsors we put on our robot. Make sure you either immediately afterwards put it on their website, on your website, or make it so you'll remember to put it on your t-shirts when you get them. Just give back to them what you told them about. Then keep them updated about team events, invite them to tournaments, or just demos you're doing. If they're really interested in learning more about you guys or want to see what more of the program is about, just let them know, give them a heads up. Hey, we're going to be at a tournament. It's pretty close to you guys. Come check it out. Say hi. Things like that. One of the cool things is PTC is one of our biggest sponsors. And one thing we did is after Champs this year, we sent out a letter saying, thank you for your sponsorship. We had a great time at Champs. We're the world champions. It was really fun. We learned a lot. We sent that out to all of our sponsors. And I was talking to a lady who works for PTC, and she said, oh, it's Fish in the Boat. I got an email from corporate a couple weeks ago. It was about Fish in the Boat. And then she went on to tell me that it basically spread like wildfire through the company. So it's not just going to some unknown face. It's going to the employees of the company, which is really, really cool. And then after season demos is after tournaments or after your season is done, go back and give them another demo of your competition robot. This is just a good way to keep sponsor relations going for the next season. Just be like, hey, we just want to come back, say hi again. This is our robot for this season. Maybe we'll come back to you in a couple months, say hi again, talk about sponsorship, things like that.
And this is great. Those are great examples of some short-term things we can do with sponsors. But now, looking long-term, from maybe 1 year to the next, how do you maintain this relationship over that time frame?
A lot of it is working with them during the off season, going back to them in, June or July, saying hello again, demoing your competition robot, like I said, sending out newsletters about your doings, maybe like quarterly, what you did over the season, what outreach you did, any cool events you have coming up. If they're big first postseason events, invite them to those. Along with a big one here is introducing old sponsors to new communication or business team leads. If you have an older team member as a business team captain and he or she is aging out, you want to take that new captain for the next season and introduce them to your sponsors so you can keep that relationship going and maintain a relationship with that sponsor instead of having them just fall off the world. Which is just a big one there. And make sure you maintain contact with them, even if it's just an email or a quick phone call saying, hey, just wanted to say hi again. Keeping that relationship is very important because they will sponsor you year after year after year.
And it's important to make sure that you're not definitely not just going to them and saying, oh, it's April. We went to the championship, and it's time to responsor the team. It's important to keep the relationships up, so you're checking in with them, not just to tell them and ask them for money, but to also show what you're doing, help them engage, and things like that. So, good examples.
Yeah,
Now, do you have any tips or suggestions for teams who are just starting this fundraising process, or just starting to go out to sponsors?
I do. I have a lot of them actually. I actually got an email just a couple weeks ago about a team who had contacted I think it was like 20 companies, and none of them had sponsored them. And what I told them was to not give up. It's really just a numbers game. 50% of the people who are the companies we've talked to said, thank you for your time, but we don't have the funding this year. Um, Maybe come back next year, or we just don't have the funding at this point. And then the other 50% were like, hey, we'll sponsor you financially. We can't sponsor you financially, but here's some of our product. Or we have a couple people who would love to work with a team. Can we have them come over and mentor you guys? So it really is just a numbers game. But if nothing works out, it's another opportunity for you to go out and spread first. And if it doesn't work out for sponsorship, it's outreach. Um, it's just a really cool thing to stress there. Be organized. Being organized from the outside helps a lot, especially with the keeping accurate documentation, so you're not awkwardly calling sponsors 2 days in a row. Um, that one gets a little weird. Don't contact a sponsor twice and introduce yourself twice. Just the documentation part of it is very important. Know what you need. Um, have some numbers ready. Know what you need to get through your season. Know what you need from that specific sponsor. Go in with a number. And know what you need to do some other things. Like if you want to make a super cool pit, know how much you need for that on top of any fundraising you already have. Also, work towards accommodating your sponsor's request. If they're a potential sponsor, you want to work towards what they need. If they have a time that works better for them, work towards accommodating that. We've gone in and done a couple lunch demos before, a couple early ones. Excuse me. Just be prepared for events. When you're on the phone, so that first phone call, it might be a cold call, maybe a family member gave you a contact. Mention you're a high school student. I found out that this one is really cool because a couple times they wanted to come have a demo. They weren't interested in sponsoring us, but they were very surprised that I was a high school student. And especially because I was prepared and I had practiced what I was going to say. So I sounded professional and I sounded confident in what I was saying. And then a second one of that is smile. Because if you're on the phone and you're smiling and you're excited about the program, people can tell your mood over the phone. So one thing that, along with practicing the presentations, we actually practice phone calls too. And if you're not smiling or you're not excited about the program, they'll be less excited. So be excited and smile. But at the same time, it's totally okay to be nervous. Calling people is scary. But the professionals you're talking to are nice, and you should be proud of your team and be proud of your accomplishments. So just relax and have fun. Don't be afraid.
So, you sent over a lot of the documentation that your team uses, and so that will be is available online with the toolkit. And so I wanted to point that out to teams. But I wanted to just say thank you for coming on today. And if teams have any questions, they can feel free to contact me at rbecker@usfirst.org. And then we also have the information for Fish in the Boat here as well, if you have any specific questions for them or Aaron too. So, Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Renee.